Hello, and welcome back to Baby Elias's stories. We now return to Blade Runner 4, I and Talon, by K.W. Jeter. Chapter 5. A vast, oblivious deity seemed to smile down at them from above. They weren't far from where the remnants of the escaped replicant Inesk had been scrapped from the sidewalk. Iris could recognize the surrounding buildings from recently imprinted memory. The artificially generated cloud, lower than the darker and stormier ones above, remained clinging halfway up the towers, as though it had hissed steam-like out of the retrofitted ductwork. Looming overhead, as she and Vogel rounded one building's corner, was the geisha's immense image, smiling as mysteriously as before, daintily placing the tiny pill in her mouth, lips as red as her lacquered nails. The gesture had always struck Iris as vaguely sacramental, a sinister communion. You see, a lot less crowded around here. Leading the way, Vogel glanced over his shoulder at Iris, his own smile less pleasant than that of the Asian woman above. Back at the sook, you can hardly breathe. Not that you'd particularly want to. She had noticed the density of human bodies starting to thin out as they'd passed by the exact building where she'd had her final elevated tussle with Inesk. Coming round to the opposite side of the building, the sidewalks were practically deserted. "What's the deal?" "Superstitious dread," answered Vogel. He kept walking, hands in the pockets of his duster and shoulders hunched forward, as though leaning into a wind. "That's a very powerful motivator for a lot of street types. They don't have the same kind of keen, logical, scientific minds that you and I do. So when something big happens in a specific place, an event with spooky overtones, they tend to get their fear and reverence impulses mixed up and give the whole zone a wide berth. Like a reverse pilgrimage. The place is holy, so you don't go there." "What was so big that happened around here?" Iris didn't figure it could have anything to do with her tracking down and retiring the replicant Inesk. That was too much of a business-as-usual event for anyone to get excited about. "See for yourself." Vogel stopped at the corner of the next building and pointed ahead. Iris caught up with him and looked where he was pointing. An open space stretched out among the buildings, not as big as the sook, but large enough to contain an impressive pile of wreckage. Curved steel girders interconnected into a crumpled framework, darkened with both rust and ashy scorch marks, had gouged their way through the street's asphalt and concrete, drawing jagged trenches into the hidden soil meters beneath. Scraps of tattered metallic cloth fluttered from the metal, more like unraveling bandages than flags. Oh, Iris had a notion of what the wreckage represented. What it had been before the crash. It's the blimp. The fragments of cloth sheathing had been ripped, had been the tip-off, along with the spiky antennae that could be seen protruding from junction points on the steel frame. Underneath the limited spectra of the widely spaced mercury vapor street lamps, glass shards glittered jewel-like on the ground, from the broken lenses of the undercarriage's swiveling searchlights. This is where it came down. Correction. This is where it was brought down. With one raised fingertip, Vogel traced a quick diagonal slash through the air. By the rep simps. He glanced inquiringly at her. Savvy the word? Get real. This is stuff I got in basic training. You're talking replicant sympathizers. Very good, said Vogel. Glad to see you're up to speed on these things. I wasn't sure you would be, since we're talking history rather than current affairs. Nobody's seen a lot of the rep simp groups recently. Maybe they wised up. Iris gave a shrug. Maybe the penny finally dropped for them. That replicants aren't anything to be sympathetic about. Maybe, Vogel slowly nodded. Or maybe somebody wised them up. Did their thinking for them in a terminal way. So they wouldn't be bothering anyone else with their crazy ideas. Get what I mean? If anybody iced those solid citizens, it wasn't the Blade Runner division. We've got more important things to take care of, like the escaped replicants this crowd was so nuts about. Not that they accomplished anything on the replicants' behalf. That's the official line, huh? Vogel smiled indulgently at her. The rep sims were just nuances. Maybe so, but you gotta admit, some of them did a good trade at that sort of thing. Quite a spectacle when they brought down this UN advertising blimp. It had been cruising around above LA for years, so long that when it crashed, it had pretty much become a regular part of the urban landscape. Sorry I missed the fireworks, Vogel kept smiling. There'll be more. Come on. He led the way, out from the relative shelter that the building's exterior had provided. The rains had picked up again, the monsoon liquefying above the entire Los Angeles basin. With her hair plastered against her skull and the back of her neck, Iris sloshed across the poorly drained asphalt behind Vogel. Approaching the blimp's wreckage produced a chill under her skin, several degrees lower than the water seeping through her jacket's seams. It looked less like some corrosion-ravaged techno-artifact than a ruined Gaudisk cathedral, wrapped in night shadows, the glaring street lamps substituting for the appropriate cloud-streaked moonlight. Its angular net of shadows fell across Iris as she stopped and looked up the framework's elliptic curve. The crossing lines were like a sketch of a cage, superimposed upon her own elongated silhouette. Come on in. Vogel had used some of the crumpled framework's lower crossbars, the ones that had cut angled trenches through the street's asphalt, as a rough ladder to the dead blimp's midsection. He lifted a flap of the metallic fabric and gestured to the darkness inside. It's cozy. You'll like it. Both statements were inaccurate. When Iris had climbed up after him, then down into the blimp's partially collapsed abdomen, she found that cozy translated to claustrophobic. Like being swallowed by a whale, she said aloud. Not that bad. Using a vintage World War II military issue Zippo, Vogel started setting candles alight, fastened by their stalactite-like drippings. The wax tapers were studded all over the metal ribs surrounding him and Iris. The flickering ambient light they provided slowly increased as Vogel moved around the ramshackle space, bearing the tiny flame in one hand. I call it home. Charming. With her fingertips, Iris tested the curved horizontal rib behind her back. Its edge was as sharp as a honed knife. Falling asleep here would be like nesting among razor blades. You must get interesting visitors. You're the first. Vogel flicked off the Zippo's flame and restored the small metal rectangle to his pocket. I'm not by nature a sociable creature. I'm flattered. Iris supposed she and Vogel had at least that much in common. She looked up to the tent-like vault of the space. Someone, probably Vogel himself, had stitched together enough of the blimp's tattered sheath remnants to shelter this small area from the weather. The rain drummed against the metallic fabric, then gathered in its folds and valleys, forming thick rivulets that sluiced along the wind-billowed sides. In the massed, yellowish candlelight, the effect was primitive and cave-like, as though this small pocket of LA had devolved even further to archaic times. But don't think you have to go to any special effort. For you, sweetheart, it's no trouble. Vogel tugged at a section of the fabric draped over some large object beneath. God knows I want you to be happy. What's this? With the fabric removed and piled on the sagging floor, the object was revealed as a broken section of wall, extending farther than Vogel's height and covered with a regular pattern of minute translucent bumps. Section of the advertising panel that used to be on the exterior of the blimp, back when it was a going concern, pre-crash. The UN's off-planet immigration program used it to bombard the citizenry with all those lovely images of what life is like out in the far colonies. Along with that unctuous, sincere voice spelling out those promises. A chance to begin anew. Yak, yak. Probably worth bringing this puppy down just to get rid of that particular bit of urban pollution. Life's hard enough in LA without being constantly told about how much better it's supposed to be somewhere else. Suits me fine, Iris shrugged, watching him plugging in a series of cables to the bottom of the panel. If you don't like it here, why not leave? Like you said, the UN's always looking for more immigrants. I'm not that stupid. Vogel's expression soured as he fussed some more with the cables. He licked the multiple-pronged end of a plug before sticking it into its matching socket. There are things, he said darkly, I know about the UN immigration program that you don't. What kind of things? Maybe you'll find out someday. If you're unlucky. Sparks sizzled off the back of Vogel's hand as he twisted the plug and socket closer together. Besides, I can't leave. I've got work to do here. So do I. Iris found a spot she could lean back against without slicing herself. So maybe we should get down to it. Whatever you brought me here to see. Relax, said Vogel. Show's about to start. He dropped the cable, connected to his satisfaction, and kicked it beneath the lower edge of the suspended panel section. With his thumb and forefinger, he snuffed out some of the candles he had so carefully lit only a few minutes before, dropping the panel into shadow darkness. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. The panel lit up, eyes stinging bright, as Vogel jabbed the largest button on a fist-sized, portable data playback unit that had been spliced into the tangled cables. From somewhere else in the blimp's crumpled steel framework, Iris could hear a gasoline-powered electrical generator cough and wheeze into chugging life. She shaded her eyes against the sudden glare. "Could you turn it down?" "Just a second." Vogel's blurred outline was visible against the light. "The pixel elements have to run through a hardwired display cycle before we can get to the good stuff. The stuff that I put in." The glare shifted downward in intensity. Through the fingers in front of her eyes, Iris could see shapes forming on the panel section. She dropped her hand and saw the pixels blurring together, then sharpening into the off-world vistas that the UN's advertising sections had used to entice potential immigrants. A disembodied male voice boomed from a tangle of cabinetless raw speaker drivers that hung from one of the overhead steel ribs. "A new life awaits you in the off-world colonies. The chance to begin again." "Enough of that crap," growled Vogel. The voice went silent as he punched another set of buttons on the portable playback unit. The panel went dark, then was instantly filled with another image that Iris had seen before. The bright golden eyes of Scrappy the Owl, like fire-heated coins, glared out from the panel. Enough of its surroundings were visible, with the soft, shifting glow of candlelight against expensive wood, to show that its perch remained in the former Tyrell Corporation headquarters. "Where'd you get this?" It hadn't been that long since she had seen this particular playback, summoned by the Ceresper in her own apartment. "This data record is an official police document." She didn't know that for sure, but it was worth assuming. "Penalties for unauthorized possession can be pretty unpleasant." "I'm so scared." With his lanky arms folded across his chest, Vogel slowly shook his head. If the LAPD got on the case of everybody who cracked into their files, that's all they'd spend their time doing. Let's face it, the cops don't have the money to spend on the kind of security systems that would keep the average 12-year-old from going through their files, looking for celebrity dirt and fatal gun wound photos from the autopsy archives. So I'm not sweating it. Besides, one eyebrow raised, how do you know I'm not authorized? "Because," said Iris, "then you'd be a cop, like me, and you're not." "Touché. I can see why they give you the hard jobs to solve." With his thumb, he pointed to the panel behind him. "Like your problematic owl." "I'm beginning to think it was less of a problem before you came along." "Look, you said you had something to show me, some kind of information I could use." Iris nodded toward the owl's magnified image on the panel screen. "If you're only going to show me stuff I already know about, such as what an owl looks like, then I'm not impressed. I was doing better on my own." "Like I said, the good stuff's about to start." Vogel punched another button on the playback unit. "Settle back and enjoy the show." The image of the owl in 2 dimensions, rather than the 3D in which she had seen it at her apartment, was equally impressive as it unfurled its broad, powerful wings and took off from its perch. As the similarly flattened, coldly smiling image of the late Dr. Eldon Tyrell watched, the owl flared its claws and pounced upon the white rat on the oriental carpet, then flapped to its perch with its struggling meal. "Seen it," said Iris. "Big deal." "Ah, of course." Vogel gave a nod. "I expected you had, but what you've seen is the owl in question, as it was. Where and when, in the past. But let me show you something new. After a punch of a button, and the scene on the panel changed. Subtly, leaning forward from the sharp steel rib behind her, Iris had to peer closely to make out any difference at all. The light in the scene had changed. It was different and more complete in its spectrum from the blimp chambers surrounding candlelight. And it gleamed from the perch on which the owl sat, turning its avid predator gaze from one angle to the next. Wood, thought Iris. The perch at the Tyrell Corporation had been made of metal. Where was this recorded? As I said, something new. Vogel had moved back from the panel and stood next to Iris, gazing at the image before them. In fact, current, at the present location of the owl in question. This is where it's at, the thing you're looking for. Iris glanced over at him. And you know where that is? Again, as I said, I have useful information for you. Vogel displayed his thin, mocking smile once more. You see, you're not sorry now that you met up with me. Maybe. Iris regarded him with suspicion. Information doesn't do me any good if it doesn't translate into action. True. As wise men have spoken, the word is the deed. Vogel ran his thumb over the buttons on the playback unit's remote control. A wire dangled from it and ran to the portable machine by the panel. Aber in Anfang war de Wort. The word still comes first, which you have now received, or at least in part. You know that the problematic owl is not lost, except perhaps to you. I know where it is. Too bad you're the one looking for it. So we make a deal, said Iris. She had been expecting as much. Tell me what it is you want in exchange for the owl's location. Not as easy as that, Vogel shook his head. Even if I told you what you think you want to know, which I have every intention of doing, it wouldn't do you much good. Why's that? You'll see. Let me lay a little more information on you. Vogel's thumb fidgeted over the remote control's buttons, punching in a quick sequence. You'll love this. Iris watched the panel screen. The image of the owl dwindled into the background as the camera angle pulled back to a wider shot. Now the image on the panel included a couple of bored-looking, hard-faced men, sitting on cheap folding chairs in front of the owl's perch. The floor around them was littered with battery-depleted pornoids, the glossy nude images gone gray and static, a set of discarded gin rummy hands, and greasy Chinese takeout containers spread with disposable plastic chopsticks. None of that concerned Iris. What interested her was the matched pair of blackly gleaming automatic rifles, safeties off, lying across the men's knees. Who are these guys? The men were wearing identical dark gray trousers and jacket outfits, with vaguely military overtones, but no distinguishing insignia. Private security? You may say that. Standing beside her, Vogel regarded the screen. Not your average rent-a-cops, though. She nodded in agreement. Not with that kind of firepower on hand. Iris recognized the make and model of the autos, pre-devolution Czech hardware, from having worked one during a training session at LAPD's firing range. Shit like that you'd expect from the UN peace enforcement squadrons. This gear's better. The registration think tags have been disabled. See where the transmitter bumps have been filed away? Vogel pointed. They can fire off these puppies all they want, and the Central Ammo Discharge Agency wouldn't know squat about it. Iris glanced over at him. That's a capital class felony, just being in the same room with illegally modded gear like that. Exactly, Vogel smiled at her. So these guys must be really stupid or really motivated. Which do you think it is? Who's paying them that kind of money? Maybe nobody, Vogel shrugged. Maybe they're ideological types with some non-financial reasons for what they're doing and risking. Wait a minute. Her gaze went from the panel screen to Vogel again. So you don't know who they are and who they're working for? Does it matter? A tinge of impatience sounded in Vogel's voice. Get real. What's the difference? What difference is it going to make, knowing what's in their heads or who's signing their paychecks, when you're looking down the business end of one of those automatics? She mused it over in silence. This job, thought Iris, is getting hinkier by the minute. What had that son of a bitch Meyer steered her onto? What had that son of a bitch Meyer steered her onto? Heavy people? That whole Tyrell Corporation bunch had the owl in the first place. And heavier people, unknown and mysterious parties, apparently wanted it. And seemingly heaviest people who could hire gun toters like the ones shown in the image on the panel had the owl right now and were very likely not going to give it up with a mere please and thank you. It's that valuable? She couldn't figure how it could be. Rare and expensive, sure, but not something anyone guarded with an illegal army. Though maybe there were only the two she had seen on the panel. How many others are there? She gestured at the panel. Besides these. That I know about? Maybe 6 or 7 total that I've seen coming and going, including these 2 beauties. But I haven't been monitoring this feed, which is live, by the way, for very long, and I don't have access to any other video sources at this location, so there may be others. That's not good. There were a lot of variables that would have to be dealt with, all of them with lethal potential. The unknown made her uncomfortable. It was one thing not to know what to expect when running down an escaped replicant, a whole other thing when looking at an organized, well-financed operation such as this. A replicant's options, violent-wise, were limited and tending toward the diffuse, even when they ran in packs, as sometimes happened. Someone hunting a replicant faced the possibility of getting killed, all right. But if it happened, it would be through the Blade Runner's own ineptitude or miscalculation or sheer bad luck. Iris had no worries along those lines. She was still, after all, alive, which counted for a lot in this game. The dead were that way because they had been losers before they began. She had a hunter's black and efficient karma in her bones. She could feel it there, the same way the owl undoubtedly knew how sharp its own claws were. But she was also alive and in the game, she knew, because she had shrewdly picked her targets. Escaped replicants were her natural prey, as mice and other small vermin were to the owl. Go up against something larger and tougher, she told herself, and you're the one who gets retired. You're wondering, said Vogel astutely, if you can pull this one off, since it's not quite the same as what you've handled before. Iris nodded. Maybe I'm out of my league here. Over your head and every other good, coward, enabling cliche. That's the problem with you Blade Runner types. You have it too easy. Hunting down replicants is a piece of cake. Just licensed slaughter. They've got no real survival skills. How could they? A 4-year lifespan is long enough to get desperate. Not smart. You think it's so easy? Iris glared at him. You do it then. See how long you last at it. Slimmer down, said Vogel. Replicants aren't the problem here, are they? He indicated the panel screen with a jerk of his head. Deal with the problem in front of you. We're talking real human beings here, as tough and bad as you, if not more so, and with real weaponry, even bigger than that cannon you towed around next to your heart. They've got what you want. You can either decide to go for it or not. Head tilted to one side. He watched for her reaction. What's it going to be? She had to think. If her boss Meyer had known all about this, that the owl wasn't just flapping around the city, scavenging rats out of the alleys in the dark, but was actually in the possession of some heavy-duty organization like this. And how could he have not known? That it opened up all sorts of ugly conjectures, including the possibility that the whole job he'd given her was actually some kind of setup. She could have gone on poking her nose into things, letting the word get around that she was looking for this particular real live owl. There were probably dozens of gossiping dealers at the souk who were aware of it by now, and generally making a target out of herself, ready for the thugs on the panel screen to pay their terminal kind of attention to her. Iris glanced up at the image on the panel. I could have wandered right in there, she thought. Got an owl, and bang! I would have been sorted out, but good. I could have been in big trouble. Iris glanced over at Vogel. If I hadn't run into you. See? Vogel smiled. I knew you'd get to like me. Or at least appreciate me. Oh, I do. I even almost regret beating the crap out of you. It's not the best way to get a relationship started. Iris returned, his thin, humorless smile. Depends on who you're seeing. Like they say, some people pay extra for that. I could do without it. I'll try to remember that, said Iris, because we still haven't worked out all the little kinks between us, have we? Oh? One of Vogel's eyebrows lifted. Like what? Like what the hell it is you exactly want? Iris's gaze narrowed to slits. You know what I want. She gestured toward the panel screen a few yards away from them. I want the owl, but I haven't got the least notion of what you'd be getting out of this. As I said before, Vogel's smile turned even more amused. I want to help you. Your ass. This is L.A. Nobody helps anybody else without a reason. O ye of little faith. Vogel ruefully shook his head. You're really going to have to learn to start trusting people. Not trusting anything is what's kept me alive so far. I'm not going to change my operational style, just for your sake. You're going to have to, said Vogel, because you don't have any choice. You already know that you can't get the info you need out of me any other way. You either trust me, or you punt on this job. Iris resisted the urge to hit him again. Tell me who you're working for. Whose side are you on? You don't need to know that. Her words rasped out from between clenched teeth. Tell me. Can't. Not without getting you into even deeper shit than you're already in. There are some things you're better off not knowing. Let's just say that there are certain parties for whom it's as vital as it is for you that you succeed at the assignment you've been given. Parties, people, forces, whatever, that would prefer having this owl some other place than where it is right now. Like in their hands, Vogel shrugged. Conceivably. And they're using the police to get it for them. That's one possible analysis. If it helps you in some way to believe that, then go ahead. One more question. Her white, knuckled fists trembled at her sides. Why me? If this thing is so important, then it wasn't just Meyer's idea to give me the job. Somebody told him to give it to me. Why? His expression became almost pitying. Maybe they've got some confidence in you, that you can do it. Then you do yourself. Iris turned back toward the screen panel and looked at the image it presented. One of the two men with the high-powered automatic rifles had propped his weapon against the side of the folding chair so he could unwrap a processed food substitute sandwich packet on his lap and start ingesting the contents. Behind him, the owl shifted on its wooden perch, the bright yellow eyes watching hungrily for its own living food sources. All right, said Iris, but I'm going to need a little time to get things ready. Don't take too long. Vogel pressed a button on the remote control, and the panel went blank and dead. They're not going to wait around for you. They've got plans of their own. Iris looked from the candle-lit interior of the dead blimp, through the tears in its metallic sheathing, to the night's darkness outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the city streets black and glistening. She shook her head. It's not their plans I'm worried about.